The iPad is perhaps the most popular tablet worldwide, and ever since the launch of the first iPad, Apple has regularly refreshed the lineup by making incremental design changes and hardware improvements. In 2022, the iPad lineup is now bigger than ever. There are the top-of-the-line iPad Pros, below which sits the iPad Air. This year, Apple has also launched the iPad 10th generation, but rather than replacing the 9th generation model, it's a new edition that sits between the lowest price iPad and the Air. The new 2022 iPad is pricier than last year's model, which continues to be on sale at a slightly bumped up price in India. Apple has made many improvements in the iPad 10th generation model, which looks a lot similar to the iPad Air. However, don't be fooled by its naming convention, as this is by no means a budget iPad. Why? Simply because it starts at Rs 44,900 for the base model. The iPad 10th generation has received many upgrades, but with the higher price tag, should you consider buying it? Here is our review to help you decide. The iPad 10th generation follows the iPad Air M1's design language of a flat aluminum frame with slightly curved corners. The rear panel too is completely flat and comes in 4 new colors. Apple sent us the blue color, but it is also available in pink, yellow and silver options. While this might be subjective, I personally like the blue color variant of the iPad. It not only looks premium and modern at the same time, but is also a lot less flashy compared to the yellow and pink colorways. The body of the iPad 10th generation continues to have a matte finish, making it less prone to fingerprints and smudges. Due to the flat frame design, it does not feel as heavy compared to its on-paper weight of 481 grams for the cellular model. It is also only 7mm thick. On the front, the bezels on the iPad are narrower, making room for more screen real estate. The new iPad now offers a 10.9-inch Liquid Retina display. The IPS LCD has sufficient brightness for indoor use at 500 nits. Although, I wish it was a bit brighter for outdoor use during the day. While the viewing experience is generally good, you will not get those deep blacks and rich contrasts that you will get from AMOLED displays. The iPad 10th generation does not support Apple's ProMotion 120Hz refresh rate that is found in the more premium iPad Pros. The iPad 10th generation has stereo speakers which offer rich sound. For a true stereo setup, the speakers are placed on the top and bottom edges of the iPad. Even at full volume, there is no discernible distortion. There is also no 3.5mm headphone jack, in case you were wondering. With no home button, the Touch ID fingerprint authentication sensor has now been moved to the power button on the top edge, similar to the iPad Air. The volume buttons are located on the right side when held in portrait mode, below which is the SIM tray if you buy the cellular variant. Apple has also moved the front camera from the upper bezel to the right, making it ideal to use for FaceTime and video calls when the iPad is held horizontally. The front camera houses a 12-megapixel sensor. The quality is quite good for both selfies and video calls. You can also enable the ultra-wide mode to widen the frame if more people are joining the video call. The iPad 10th generation also supports center stage, which adjusts the frame to keep your face in the middle fit, or it widens the frame automatically when it detects multiple people. On the back, the iPad 10th generation has a 12-megapixel camera, which should be mainly used for scanning documents. The dynamic range is below average for photography, even though the details and colors in photos were decent when used during the day. The iPad's rear camera can record up to 4K videos at 60fps, whereas the front can record up to 1080p videos at 60fps. The overall video quality is pretty decent for a tablet. The iPad 10th generation also features a USB Type-C port, but the data transfer speeds are not as quick as the more expensive iPad models. In fact, it is the same as the iPad 9th generation with the Lightning connector. This should not be a deal breaker for most casual users, but it could be a deciding factor for serious content creators. The iPad 10th generation features the Apple A14 Bionic SoC, which is the same one that is found in the iPhone 12 series from 2020. Despite being a couple of years old, the A14 Bionic SoC is definitely no slouch. It was able to handle pretty much everything I threw at it. I typically use the Chrome browser with at least 10 tabs open at almost all times, along with pages for writing articles. My use case might not be as intensive for the A14 Bionic SoC, but in case you plan on using it in a similar way, then rest assured that the iPad 10th generation can handle this just fine. The processor also complements the larger screen when it comes to gaming. Call of Duty Mobile ran decently at the very high graphics and very high frame rate settings. There was barely any lag when playing a team deathmatch and multiplayer rounds for about 30 minutes straight. While the iPad 10th generation did not have any performance issues, I felt quite a bit of fatigue trying to perform hand gymnastics in order to play such games. To offer a more complete experience of a productivity machine, the iPad 10th generation can be magnetically attached to the Magic Keyboard's smart connector on the frame of the iPad, which provides power and data. The back cover has an adjustable built-in kickstand for even more flexibility when watching videos or playing games. This accessory is sold separately. The iPad 10th generation runs the latest iPadOS 16 out of the box. While Stage Manager, the highlight feature of iPadOS 16, is not available on the iPad 10th generation, it does get most of the other new features. I found myself using split screen and slide over the most. In terms of battery life, Apple claims that the iPad 10th generation can last up to 10 hours of surfing the web on Wi-Fi or watching videos. The cellular variant has a claimed runtime of 9 hours with the same use case. In our battery loop test, the iPad lasted for 9 hours 54 minutes, which is very close to the claimed time. The iPad 10th generation has received many upgrades compared to its 9th generation namesake. With an all-new design, this new iPad looks a lot more modern and premium. Minor, yet welcome changes such as a USB Type-C port and the landscape front camera contribute to offering a more convenient user experience. There are incremental upgrades to the display size and performance unit too, making the new iPad a more powerful device. However, Apple has also priced it considerably higher at Rs 44,900 for the base 64GB model. Our top spec model with 256GB of storage and cellular costs quite a bit more. If you add the Magic Keyboard Folio, this pushes the price over Rs 1 lakh. While the iPad 10th generation is a solid offering, its pricing in India makes it less appealing. The iPad Air M1 can be found online for as low as Rs 53,000, and if you can stretch your budget, it makes sense getting it over this iPad.